We've rolled back our football prices. WagerTalk's first full year was 2015, and we've lowered our football season packages to match what we charged that football season. Why? It's simple. We want to make our season-long packages an extraordinary value. You can buy a full college football season or full NFL season for only $5.99 each. But if you buy a college football NFL combo from the same handicapper, you pay only $8.99. Looking to mix and match handicappers? We have you covered. Just email support@wagertalk.com for a bundle discount and to create any handicapper combo you can dream of.
Green flag drops. We are live. NASCAR live in the fast lane right here on Wager Talk TV. We're going to recap the Michigan race, but more importantly, we're going to get to the final race of the regular season before the playoffs begin next week, and that's the Coke Zero Sugar 400, race number 26 of 36, the cutoff race. And there's still a spot open if somebody wins for the first time to get in. We're going to talk about the scenarios. We're going to talk to how to approach this random race and how to handicap it. And most importantly, some investment opportunities for Daytona this weekend. First, though, let me bring in my co-host, as always, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, and, of course, Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. And, Rocky, before we get to the Daytona race for this Saturday night, let's recap last Sunday afternoon's race at Michigan. It's a typical cookie cutter, a 2-mile cookie cutter. But the usual suspects were up there at the end. Rocky, give us our Rocky recap for Michigan last weekend.
Yes, sir. I want to start off by mentioning my 1-2 day I had in NASCAR this past weekend in Michigan. Andy and I both were rolling right along with our picks. The only loser appearing to be my Harvick over Byron pick. Then we had a caution come out with about 20 laps left. Here comes our bad luck yet again. Logano was crushing Bell, which was my top play of the day, but they had to restart, and on the restart he gets in a wreck, and there went that easy winner. Andy was cruising along with a solid 3-0 day until that happened as well, and I believe he finished with a 1-2 day as well. Once again, we handicapped the race correctly, but the results were what they should have been, and it's just completely frustrating. I know Andy's had a lot of last lap run out of gas things to happen this year. It's just been a weird year. But anyway, as far as the race, Ryan Blaney ended up winning the race ahead of William Byron, who was good all day long. Kyle Larson finished third. Kurt Busch and Denny Hamlin rounded out the top 5. Matt DiBenedetto, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex finished 6th through 10th. Chase Elliott won stage 1. Kyle Busch won stage 2. Kevin Harvick clinched a playoff spot on points after the Michigan race. No matter what happens here in Daytona, one playoff spot remains. It appears Tyler Reddick could secure it with a solid run, and no first-time driver winning. He sits 25 points ahead of Austin Dillon. The thing is, though, Reddick don't really run well here in Daytona, and Austin Dillon does. So that final spot could get interesting by the end of the race. And, of course, you got to watch out here for that first-time winner at this track. But it should be interesting heading into Daytona this weekend.
Yeah, and of course, we don't always talk a lot about the points and the situations and the playoff situations, but this week it's more important than ever as far as the handicap goes, because there are certain drivers that have to win, which means they're not going to be content with a second or third place finish. They will look to wreck someone if needed. Other guys like Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, who are in the title chase really for the regular season points lead, I think they basically have both come out and say they might be a little conservative. Larson actually said he probably could have won last week, and he finishes third. He started first, finished third, led the most laps, had the best driver rating. He once again was the best car on the track, as he's been most of the seasons on these type, these 1.5, 2 miles. But he said he was conservative down the stretch because he didn't want to take a chance of blowing a top 5 finish and finishing 20th or 30th. So something to keep in mind. Ryan Blaney, by the way, the 5th driver rating overall, led only the 6th most laps, but he won the race due to the chaos at the end. Andy Lang, your thoughts on Michigan, and I think you probably have a Stenhouse Unforced Error Award. And by the way, Reddick is ahead of Austin Dillon for that final spot as we speak because of a terrible unforced error by Austin Dillon.
Yeah, Rocky recapped it perfectly. Running 3-0 for a majority of the race and end up 1-2 because NASCAR throws yellow for some sprinkles. And so it's like earlier at New Hampshire, they don't throw the yellow and they wreck the top two guys. This week they throw yellow too early. Rain stops, and then the restart got us at the end. Yeah, that was a pretty obvious Stenhouse award. Brad and Austin Dillon wrecking after the stage was over. It looked on the replay. It looked like there was no need for them to be racing that hard at that particular time. So Dillon, like you said, they had a rocket ship out there. They did. He could have won that race if he would have stayed out of trouble. So they're going to point to that race if they miss out on the playoffs. So Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski getting into it is definitely the Stenhouse award this week.
Yeah, it's really hard to say who was at fault. I mean, Austin Dillon was trying to pick up an extra spot before the stage ended, which is perfectly fine. He side drafted him and actually made a pretty good pass, got down below the white line, and then right after the finish line, when basically the stage is over, there's nothing to race for anymore, he comes up harder than he needed to, but Keselowski could have easily given him some ground. It's almost like Keselowski came down a little bit. And, of course, Keselowski is a guy that does not have this team next season, and he's been vastly underperforming. So you got to wonder what his mindset was. But, yeah, big picture, I mean, this might be the most fitting Stenhouse award we've ever given out because it very well might cost Austin Dillon a playoff spot. We'll know after this week because he likely is ahead of Reddick by several points if he continues to run well. Now he's back several points, and he needs either a big race. By the way, Dillon is good on these restrictor plate tracks. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a moment. Rocky, though, before we get to you, I want to let all the viewers out there know this is the time to get on board. It might be race 25 of 36, but you're getting a $100 discount on either Andy or Rocky for the next full year of motorsports. So if you've missed out this season, if you waited for some of those bad luck results to get out of the way, last week was the week. Now you step in. And we joked about this earlier this season, and both of these guys had some really bad breaks the first month of the year, and they went on a monster run right after that. And, hey, look, Daytona's the one track you don't have to worry about that, right? No random results this week. But seriously, Race 100 gets you a $100 discount for the next year of motorsports from either Rocky, Andy, or both. I'd recommend doing both. Go to sportsmemo.com, get Rocky Atkinson. Go to wagertalk.com, get Andy Lang. Use promo code RACE100, RACE 100, RACE100. Gets you a $100 discount on a full one-year subscription. This is good until September 30th only. You have less than a month left to use this, and you get you the next full years of motorsports with a $100 discount. RACE100 for Rocky and or Andy. WagerTalk.com, Rocky's at SportsMemo.com. Rocky, let's look at Daytona this Saturday night. It is a Saturday night race, folks, so don't sleep on it. It's not Sunday. This is the cutoff race. A lot of guys will have to win. It's the most random track, along with Talladega, that we have every year. I know it's not a great handicapping track for best bets, but it is so for fantasy, for long shots, and also maybe to sprinkle some long shot outright winners. So give me a top three guy, or at least a top three pick you're looking at here for Daytona this Saturday night.
Yeah, definitely a track you got to be careful with. You don't want to put a bunch of money on any head-to-head matchups this weekend or anything. Most likely we'll take a pass. If not, we'll have a small play. That is possible, but I don't know yet. I'll see how the lines come out tomorrow. But if I got to pick one guy here, I got to go with Denny Hamlin. 3 wins, 11 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and 31 races here. His average finished 15.9 at this track. And over the past 3 years, he's been even a little bit better. 2 wins, 5 top 10s in those 7 races, average finish of 11.0. And we know he's been very solid this year, although he still hasn't won a race. He has been right there at the top of the points. So looking for Hamlin to have a good run again.
Yeah, and how ironic that Denny Hamlin doesn't win a race until race 26, and it comes on the most random track where Michael McDowell got a win to start the season. It's the only reason he's in the playoff scenario. Once again, Denny Hamlin, as Rocky mentioned earlier, has clinched a spot even without a win. Kevin Harvick, by the way, I got to quickly talk about Harvick. I know last week in Michigan, a track he swept on last year, and we said, we need to see something. Guy was 13th in driver rating, 14th in finish, and did not lead a single lap. I mean, he just was not in contention last week. So just something to take away going into the playoffs and the other intermediate tracks that we'll have. I'm off of Harvick until I see otherwise. This week, though, of course, it's a random track. Hamlin has appeared to be the best restrictor plate racer. He's won several 500s. He was in contention again this year. Andy, who's somebody you're looking at this week at Daytona?
You just mentioned him, Michael McDowell. Won the Daytona 500 and then finished third at Talladega. So we've talked about this before. Drivers are pretty open. He's one of the favorites for other drivers to draft with. Drivers feel really safe with him either in front or behind. And one of those cars where on, bigger tracks like at Texas or Atlanta, he's just not going to be able to keep up. But on these restrictor plates, a lot of driving ability. And, he's a master at drafting, and he will probably be teamed up with a guy with a really powerful car if he's there at the end. We see he finishes up near the top a lot at these. He's plus 160 to finish in the top 10, and he's 35-1 to win. So I think you're getting great odds on a guy who has shown he can keep it clean on these restrictor plate races, and he's had success this year.
Yeah, and it's a good point you bring up about people into the draft with him, Andy, because that is the key. We talk about teammates working together, and McDowell doesn't necessarily have a strong team, but he's established himself, obviously, as somebody that they will work with. And now that he's won the 500, obviously, he's legit. But he's been good at other times. Like you said, he was good at Talladega, and he's been good also in other years at the restrictor plates. He's also been decent at times on road courses, but he's been just terrible on the intermediate tracks. So that's something you have to look at, or these guys are a lot better on certain types of tracks, and McDowell is a textbook example of that. And I do think people will work with him. And, of course, Denny Hamlin, he's got Kyle Busch, Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, guys that will work with him as well, two guys we've mentioned so far. Rocky, who's another guy you're looking at as maybe a top 3 contender at Daytona this week?
I'm looking for Kevin Harvick to run well. I know he hasn't been as good as last year, no question about that. This is a random track, however, and now he's just another random driver pretty much. But he does have decent numbers here. 2 wins, 11 top 5s, 16 top 10s in 40 races here in Daytona. Average finish of 17.2 at this track. He has clinched his spot in the playoffs based on points after this past week. So wouldn't be surprised if him and Amarella, they just head to the back at the beginning of the race to avoid the big one and then come on strong at the end. So don't be surprised if Harvick's not up there competing here this weekend.
Yeah, and once again, it's a totally random track, so I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to touch Harvick, as I said, on these intermediates until I see something. He was on one of his best tracks in a couple years last week and could even be a top 10 car. But it's a different track now, obviously, at Daytona. And Almirola is an interesting guy to bring up, Rocky. We've talked a lot about him the last few months as a bit of a sleeper because he had such a terrible start, a kind of an unlucky bad start. But keep in mind, Clint Bowyer was very good on restrictor plates, and Almirola has been as well during his career. So this is a team that's underperformed this year. But once again, Almirola, Harvick could work together. And I like sitting back. I've always said you either want to be dead front or you want to be way, way back. And because it just doesn't do any good to be in the middle of those packs when the big ones happen. So something to keep in mind also with fantasy. I know, Andy, you talk a lot about that. You want to try to find guys in your fantasy lineup this week that are starting way back because not only do you get the plus points for advancing, but they have as much of a chance as anyone to win still. Andy, who's somebody else you're looking at this week at Daytona?
William Byron's been under the radar recently, drove really well last week. Best average finished the last 2 races at Daytona and Talladega is William Byron. So I could see someone like him sneaking up there, grabbing a win. Not really on anybody's radar, but yeah, William Byron's been good at restrictor plate races. He might be worth a sprinkle.
Yeah, and something else too, we're talking about, it's hard to look, we don't have practice or qualifying, but there's really no stats you can look at. And some of even the recent results are random. But if you look at like average finish or top 20s, for example, Michael McDowell, the last 7 at Daytona, he's had 1 do not finish, and that can just be random bad luck. But he's been top 20 in all of the other 6 starts, which once again shows, he's always in contention. And a guy like William Byron has just been good overall everywhere this season. And that's a fast team, obviously. We know Hendrick's been the fastest team, and horsepower does somewhat matter still. And he's got teammates to work with, obviously, in Bowman, Larson, Chase Elliott's been good here. So obviously Byron has good teammates to work with. Rocky, who's somebody you're looking at here at Daytona?
Well, Andy just said my third guy is William Byron. So I'm going to touch on him, and then I'm going to head right into my sleeper pick. But Byron does have 1 win here, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s in 7 races. Average finish is 20.7. It's track not that great, but Byron has been really good this year. Very surprising how well he's run. So I'm expecting him to be at the front this weekend. As far as a sleeper pick goes, I'm looking at Chris Buescher at 40-1 odds. He has no wins here, but he does have 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 11 races here in Daytona. Out of those races, he has 4 DNFs, which means he was most likely running at the front when the race was over. If he didn't get caught up in a crash. Over the past 3 years here in Daytona, he has 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and 7 races. Average finish of 15.3. He's usually really fast at these big tracks, so I'm looking for Chris Buescher to run well this weekend.
Yeah, and we combined obviously Talladega and Daytona, but they are different tracks. For some reason, some guys do better at one than the other. Like Keselowski's always been really good at Talladega. Hamlin's been better at Daytona. I think some of that is just random variance. I like to combine the two, but for what it's worth, Buescher has been better at Daytona than Talladega. And in fact, if you look back the last 3 years, he's finished 6 of the 7 races, and those 6 that he's finished, he's been top 25 of the 6 and top 10 4 of those 6, which is pretty impressive for a guy that we don't talk a lot about. So I'm with you with Chris Buescher as a long shot. Andy, you got another top 3 long shot. How do you want to tackle it?
I'll give you a guy that I think would be a surprise unless you dig a little deep if he won, and then I'll give you a guy to fade. Bubba Wallace, average finish of 12.3 the last 3 races at Daytona. And oh my gosh, what an incredible storyline for NASCAR. If Bubba Wallace wins the last regular season
race, the playoffs,
sneaks into the playoffs. They get some extra footage in the playoffs for their little Netflix show, and he's only 25-1 right now. So Bubba Wallace, I could see. And he actually has been pretty decent at these restrictor plate races. This isn't trying to pick him to be good at a track that he's notoriously bad at. He's been pretty good. So it would be an incredible storyline. A guy to fade. When you're on a run of bad luck, you're just on bad luck. Joey Logano, the last few weeks, if there's going to be a wreck towards the end, Logano's going to be involved. And we see these drivers just go through these stretches. And, we joke about that, but his average finish at Daytona the last 3 races is 21.7, very un-Logano-like. So he's been running good. The finishes aren't there. And at a random track with crashes, it seems like Joey Logano's got a magnet on them. So I'm going to be fading Joey Logano.
Yeah, once again to clarify, Bubba Wallace, Darrell Wallace Jr. is not the play against. He is the sleeper for Andy Lang. I know that's unusual. And I'll tell you what, Andy, I don't disagree with you. I love the conspiracy angle. That's just a bonus. But he does run well on these tracks. In fact, the last 3 years at Talladega, Daytona combined, he's finished 10 of the 14 races. He's been top 20 in all 10 of those finishes. So this is a guy that just stays out of trouble. He's only been top 10 twice, but it shows he stays out of trouble somehow. And some guys do that better than others. And Daytona, he's actually been a little bit better. So I'm with you on the Bubba Wallace bandwagon. I love a good conspiracy angle. He makes the playoffs. That's all they want. I think it's going to happen, actually. Rocky, give us a play against. You giving us your sleeper? Give us a play against guy.
I've got to add on to that Bubba Wallace. I mean, I like him too this weekend, actually. I mean, it's very surprising, I know, but do not fade Bubba this weekend. Bubba's probably going to run good. He's got good numbers here. So just, normally we do fade Bubba, but be careful this weekend if you're trying to do that. But go against driver, Daniel Suarez. He has no wins, no top 5 finishes, no top 10s. In 8 races here in Daytona. Average finish is 31.6 at this track. Over the past 3 years in 6 races here, his average finish is 34.5 here in Daytona. Fade Daniel Suarez. If you go to WagerTalk.com or SportsMemo.com, click on live odds, they'll have the matchups up there already. They don't have the odds yet. Those will fill in tomorrow. So look for Suarez. He's going to be matched up with against a couple guys at least, and look to fade him.
Yeah, I'm with you. Both Logano and Suarez have just had some bad mojo in recent weeks, and I'm not sure Daytona's the track you want to go to with bad mojo on your side. So that's something else to keep in mind. Even though it's a random race, those 2 guys are not in good current form. Andy, on the way out here, give us a free matchup. Give us a free best bet, free play at least for the show. I know we might not have best bets this weekend, but once again, Race 100 gets you the next full year of motorsports. Andy's at WagerTalk.com, Rocky at SportsMemo.com. Race 100, Race 100, $100 discount for a full 1-year subscription for motorsports, including any plays they have this week and the rest of the year every week. Also, check out Andy on Bump Sports, at Bump Sports on Twitter, Rocky at Rocketman Sports. He often puts up free plays for NASCAR as well. Andy, give us a free play, though, for the show here, something you're looking at a head-to-head for Daytona.
Michael McDowell over Ricky Stenhouse. Last 3 races at Daytona, McDowell's averaging a top 10 finish. Stenhouse average finish of 23.3. It's finished ahead of Stenhouse in the last 5 races here at Daytona. Easy play for me, McDowell over Stenhouse.
Yeah, and Stenhouse is a guy we often say is a sleeper, but he's also been more of a sleeper in my mind at Talladega than Daytona. And I think a lot of that was just random variance. And like you said, Andy, it's started to come back to the norm in recent years here on these tracks. Rocky, free head-to-head here for this weekend at Daytona.
I like Austin Dillon over Tyler Reddick here. It's going to be interesting as they battle for the final spot on the in the playoffs on points. They are teammates as well, so how's it going to play out? You know, usually teammates are helping each other here on these tracks with drafting. So it's going to be interesting. Dillon has 1 win here, 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 16 career starts. Average finish is 14.7 here, which is second best only to Justin Haley, who's only raced here twice in the Cup Series, winning 1 of them. Reddick has no wins, no top 5s, no top 10s, and 4 races here. Average finish 27.8 at this track. His best finish here is actually 27th. I like Dillon to be competitive here. I wouldn't be surprised if he won the race. He was very fast this past weekend, and I'm expecting him to be fast again here in Daytona.
Yeah, it's a really interesting matchup, Rocky, because those are the 2 guys fighting for the final playoff spot and their teammates on top of that. Like you said, Austin Dillon has been good on restrictor plates during his career, better than average compared to his other tracks. And, you know, once again, Reddick doesn't have to beat him. He only has to finish about 10 or 15 spots behind, or about 10 spots behind him probably. So there again, as long as Dillon doesn't crash, Dillon can beat him by 5 or 10 spots. Reddick still gets in and plays it safe. So I like the logic there. I think that's a really interesting one to watch. Rocky, once again, likes Austin Dillon over Tyler Reddick as his free head-to-head. Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. Austin Dillon over Tyler Reddick. Once again, Rocky's at SportsMemo.com. And then once again, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. Andy's got Michael McDowell over Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Michael McDowell over Stenhouse. Michael McDowell, of course, won the last Daytona race, the 500 early this year on this very track. And Andy's at WagerTalk.com. Final reminder, once again, Race 100, RACE 100. Race 100 gets you a $100 discount on a full year of motorsports best bets from Andy and Rocky. Rocky's at Sports Memo, Andy's at WagerTalk.com. Use it for both of them. Race 100 to get a full year with a $100 discount right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget the race is Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern this Saturday. And we'll be back next Friday here on Life in the Fast Lane for the start of the NASCAR playoffs, the final 10 races of the year. Don't forget to subscribe to Wager Talk TV. Give the video a thumbs up. Most importantly, leave us comments below. Let us know your long shots, your play-on-play against guys for Daytona this weekend. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again next week.
Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to WT